The plane's engine screamed. A banshee wail that drowned out my heartbeat as I sprinted across the tarmac. Notebook clutched like a lifeline. I was chasing a story. But what I found was a lie so beautiful it burned. His name was Eli. And he was no mechanich, was a pilot. A damn good one. Hiding in plain sight. My name's Caleb. 27. A journalist with a chip on my shoulder and a knack for sniffing out secrets. I come to Willow Creek, a sleepy Oregon town, chasing rumors of a covert flight operation tied to a string of mysterious deliveries. The local airport, a patchwork of rusting hangars and cracked runways, was my hunting ground. That's where I met Eli. 25. All lean muscle and disarming grins. Wiping grease off his hands like he was born to fix engines. His hazel eyes caught the sun like stained glass. And when he smiled, I forgot my questions. Too cute to be a smuggler. I'd muttered under my breath, half joking. God, what a fool I was. The first time we spoke, he was elbow deep in a Cessna's engine. His jumpsuit smeared with oil. You the guy asking about the night flights, he said, not looking up. His voice was low, steady, like he'd already sized me up. I nodded, scribbling in my notebook, trying to play it cool. Heard you're the best mechanic here. Know anything about those unmarked planes landing after midnight? He shrugged, a flicker of something amusement crossing his face. Engines don't talk, man. Neither do I. But his eyes lingered on me a beat too long, and I felt it, a spark, sharp and dangerous. Willow Creek was a town that thrived on whispers. Locals swore the airport was a front for something shady, drugs. Maybe. Or worse. I'd been sent by the Portland Gazette to dig up the truth. But after 2 weeks, I had nothing but dead ends and a growing obsession with Eli. He was everywhere, hauling tools, joking with the other mechanics, moving with a quiet confidence that didn't match his just a grease monkey act. I started hanging around the hangar more than I needed to, asking questions he dodged with that same damn smile. You're persistent, he said one evening, tossing me a soda as we sat on crates outside the hangar. The sky was bruising purple, and the air smelled of jet fuel and pine. Persistence, my job. I shot back, but my gaze drifted to the way his fingers curled around the can. Strong and sure. I should have known better. A journalist doesn't fall for his lead. But Eli wasn't just a lead, was a puzzle. One I couldn't stop trying to solve. The more I watched him, the more I noticed things that didn't add up. He knew too much about flight paths, wind shear, and restricted airspace for a guy who supposedly just turned wrenches. Once, I caught him staring at a flight log, his lips moving like he was calculating something. When he saw me, he slammed the log shut, that grin snapping back into place. You're gonna get me in trouble, Caleb, he teased, but his voice had an edge. One night, I stayed late, hiding in the shadow of a fuel truck, watching the runway. An unmarked plane touched down at 1A. Its lights off until the last second. My heart pounded as I scribbled notes, the thrill of a breakthrough buzzing in my veins. Then I saw him, Eli, striding toward the plane, not in his jumpsuit but in a pilot's jacket, moving with purpose. He climbed into the cockpit like it was home, and my stomach dropped. The guy I'd called too cute was no mechanic. He was the story. I confronted him the next day, cornering him in the hangar. You're a pilot, I said. my voice shaking with anger and something else betrayal. Maybe. What's the game? Eli. Smuggling. Spying. He didn't flinch. Just leaned against a toolbox. Arms crossed. You're good. Caleb. Too good. His tone was soft, but his eyes were steel. But you're chasing the wrong story. He stepped closer. Close enough I could smell the cedar on his skin. Walk away. For your own good. I didn't. Couldn't. Not when every look he gave me felt like a dare. That night, I broke into the airport office, my pulse hammering as I rifled through files. I found flight logs with Eli's initials, routes to remote airstrips, and cargo manifests labeled medical supplies. Legit. Maybe. But why the secrecy? Why the lies? I was so lost in the papers I didn't hear the door creak until Eli's shadow fell over me. You don't quit, do you? He said, his voice low, almost sad. I spun around, ready to fire back. But the look on his face stopped me cold. Not anger, fear. Caleb. He whispered. You're in over your head. Eli's words hung in the air, heavy as the jet fuel fumes outside. I stood frozen in the dim office, clutching a stolen flight log, my heart slamming against my ribs. In over my head. I snapped, shoving the papers toward him. Then tell me what's going on. Eli. Who are you? He didn't answer right away, just stared at me, his hazel eyes searching mine like he was deciding something. Finally, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're gonna hate me, he said, almost to himself. He pulled me out of the office, locking the door behind us, and led me to the edge of the runway. The night was cold, the stars sharp above the Oregon pines. I'm not smuggling drugs, Caleb, he said, his voice low but firm. I fly medical supplies, vaccines, blood, organsto clinics that can't get them any other way. Off the books. Yeah. Because the system's broken. People die waiting for red tape to clear. I blinked, trying to process it. So why lie? Why pretend to be a mechanic? He laughed, a bitter sound. Because pilots draw attention. Mechanics don't. And attention gets people hurt. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But I'd been burned by liars before. And my instincts screamed there was more to it. Prove it, I said, crossing my arms. He hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow night. Meet me here at midnight. But Caleb, if you write this story, you'll destroy everything. His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw past the charm, past the lies. He was scared, not for himself, but for something bigger. The next day, I couldn't focus. My editor was breathing down my neck for a draft. But all I could think about was Eli. I replayed every moment, his teasing grins. The way his hand brushed mine when he passed me a wrench. The flicker of guilt in his eyes when I got too close to the truth. I was falling for him. And it was the worst mistake I could make. A journalist's job is to expose, not protect. But when I looked at Eli, I didn't see a story. I saw a man who made my chest ache. Midnight came, and I was back at the airport, nerves on edge. Eli was waiting by a small plane, his cargo door open. Get in, he said, tossing me a headset. I froze. You're flying. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. You wanted proof. This is it. Against every shred of common sense, I climbed aboard. The plane was cramped, stacked with crates labeled fragile, medical. Eli's hands moved over the controls with a precision that made my stomach flip, not from fear, but from awe. He was a pilot. All right. A damn good one. We took off, the runway lights blurring into streaks as Willow Creek vanished below. Where are we going? I asked, my voice tinny through the headset. Eastern Oregon, he said. Tiny clinic. No landing strip. They need these supplies by dawn, or kids don't make it. His jaw was tight, his focus absolute. I watched him, the way his hands steadied the yoke, the way his eyes scanned the instruments. He wasn't just skilled, he was born for this. The flight was rough, turbulence rattling the crates, but Eli was calm, murmuring to the plane like it was alive. She's fussy, but she'll get us there, he said, catching my stare. I laughed despite myself. You talk to all your planes like that. He grinned. Real this time. Only the ones I trust. For a moment, it was just us, the hum of the engine, and the vast, starry sky. I forgot the story, the lies, the danger. I just wanted to know him. We landed on a dirt strip lit by flares, a speck of a town barely visible in the dark. Locals rushed to unload the crates, their faces lit with gratitude. A woman, maybe a nurse, grabbed Eli's hand, tears in her eyes. You're a godsend, she said. He brushed it off, but I saw the weight he carried. This wasn't just a job. It was his purpose. And I was the idiot who'd called him too cute to believe. Back in the plane, I couldn't stop staring at him. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. He didn't look at me, just kept his eyes on the controls. Because you'd write it. And if this gets out, the feds shut us down. No more flights. No more kids getting their shots. His voice was raw, and it hit me like a punch. I'd been chasing a headline, but he was saving lives. The flight back to Willow Creek was silent, save for the drone of the engine. I stared out at the black horizon, my notebook untouched in my lap. Eli's words echoed in my head. If this gets out, the feds shut us down. I wanted to be angry at him for lying, for making me feel like a fool, but all I felt was a hollow ache. He wasn't a smuggler or a spy. He was a hero, and I'd been too blind to see it. We landed just before dawn, the sky a soft gray. Eli cut the engine and sat there, hands still on the yoke, like he was bracing for something. You gonna write it? He asked, not looking at me. His voice was flat, but I caught the tremor in it. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. The truth was, I didn't know what I was going to do. My career was built on exposing secrets. But this one felt like it could break me. Back at the hangar, we sat on the same crates we'd shared that first night, the air thick with unspoken words. Why do you do it? I asked finally. The flights, the lies, all of it. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. My mom died when I was a kid. Rural hospital. No supplies. They couldn't save her. His voice was quiet, but every word landed like a stone. I got my pilot's license at 18. Started flying for this group a year later. It's not legal, but it's right. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, And the mechanic act. He smirked. But it was hollow. Keeps people like you from asking too many questions. I laughed. A weak sound. Didn't work. Did it? His eyes met mine. And for a moment, the world stopped. No. He said softly. It didn't. There it was again, that spark. That pull. I wanted to hate him for dragging me into this mess. But all I could think about was how close he was. How his breath hitched when I leaned in just a fraction. The next few days were a blur. I wrote a draft for my editor. But it was vague. Skirting the truth. I couldn't bring myself to expose Eli. Not yet. Instead, I kept going back to the airport, telling myself it was for the story. But it wasn't. It was for him. We'd talk for hours. Me asking questions he'd half answer. Him teasing me about my fancy city notebook. One night, he showed me how to check a plane's oil. His hand guiding mine. His laugh warm against my ear. I was falling. Hard. And I didn't know how to stop. But the story wasn't dead. My editor called. Demanding progress. Caleb, you're sitting on something big. Can feel it. I lied. Said I needed more time. Meanwhile, I started noticing cars lingering too long near the airport. Men in suits asking questions at the diner. Eli noticed too. They're watching us, he said one evening, his voice low as we stood by the hangar. Feds? I asked, my stomach twisting. He nodded. Or worse. I wanted to ask what worse meant, but the look in his eyes told me not to. That night, I followed him again, this time to a meeting in a back room of the airport office. I hid outside, ear pressed to the door, catching fragments of hushed voices. They're closing in. Can't keep this up. Eli, you need to stop flying. My heart sank. He was in deeper than I'd thought. When he came out, I stepped from the shadows. What the hell was that? I demanded. He froze, then grabbed my arm, pulling me into the dark. You can't be here, he hissed. They'll think you're part of it. Part of what? I snapped, but he just shook his head, his grip tight. Go home, Caleb. Please. I didn't go home. Couldn't. The next morning, I dug deeper, hacking into the airport's outdated server. What I found made my blood run cold. Encrypted emails, coded schedules, names I didn't recognize. This wasn't just about medical supplies. There was money changing hands. Big money. And Eli's name was all over it. I confronted him again. This time at his tiny apartment above the hardware store. You lied to me, I said, shoving the printouts at him. This isn't just about saving kids, is it? His face crumpled, and for the first time, he looked small. Caleb, he said, voice breaking. I didn't want you to know. Eli's apartment was a mess of flight manuals and empty coffee mugs. The kind of chaos that felt lived in. Real. He stood by the window, the printouts trembling in his hands. It's not what you think, he said. But his voice lacked the confidence I'd grown used to. I didn't back down. Then what is it? Eli. Because this looks like you're running something illegal. And I'm the idiot who trusted you. He flinched. And I hated myself for it. But I needed the truth. He sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. It's complicated. He started. The medical flights theory real. But some of the cargo is not just supplies. There's cash. Sometimes documents. Stuff people pay to move quietly. My stomach churned. You're a smuggler, I said, the word bitter on my tongue. He shook his head. Not like that. It's for people who can't go through legal channels, refugees. Families escaping bad situations. The money funds the flights. I don't keep a cent. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. And the feds? I asked. He looked away. They think it's drugs. They've been after us for months. Paced. My mind racing. Everything I'd felt for him, every late-night talk. Every stolen glance felt tainted. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. My voice softer now. He stood, stepping closer, his eyes pleading. Because I'm falling for you, Caleb. And if you knew, you'd have to choose him or your story. I couldn't risk losing you. His words hit like a freight train, stealing my breath. I wanted to grab him, to kiss him, to scream at him. Instead, I just stood there, torn. The next week was torture. I stopped going to the airport, trying to clear my head. But Eli was everywhere in my dreams. In the notes I couldn't bring myself to write. My editor was losing patience, threatening to pull me off the story. I started digging online, cross-referencing names from the emails. One led to a nonprofit tied to refugee aid. Another to a shady logistics firm. Eli's story checked out, but it didn't erase the lies. I felt like I was drowning, caught between my heart and my head. Then it happened. I was at the diner, nursing a coffee, when two men in dark suits sat down across from me. Caleb Monroe. One said, flashing a badge. We need to talk about Eli Carter. My blood ran cold. They knew about the flights, the cash, everything. He's a good guy, I said, hating how weak it sounded. The agent leaned in, voice low. Good guys don't break federal law. Help us, and we'll go easy on him. I gripped my mug, my mind screaming. Betray Eli, or protect him and risk everything me career. My freedom, maybe more. I met Eli that night, my heart in my throat. The feds came to me, I said, watching his face pale. What did you tell them? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nothing. Yet, I stepped closer, my hands shaking. But you need to tell me everything. Eli. No more lies. He nodded, pulling me into the hangar, away from prying eyes. What he told me changed everything. The operation was bigger than I'd imagined. A network of pilots, doctors, and activists, moving supplies and people across borders. Eli was the linchpin, the best pilot they had. But he was also the most exposed. If they catch me, it's over, he said, his voice breaking. Not just for me, for everyone we help. I saw the fear in his eyes, but also the fire. He believed in this, more than anything. And I believed in him. I made my choice that night. I went back to my motel and burned my notes. Every lead, every name, gone. I wrote a new story, a fluff piece about Willow Creek's airport revival, and sent it to my editor. He was furious, but I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't chasing a byline. I was chasing something real. Burning my notes felt like setting fire to my career. But as the ashes curled in the motel trash can, I felt lighter. I'd chosen Eli, chosen his cause, over the story that could have made me. But the feds weren't done. I saw their cars circling the airport, their questions growing sharper at the diner. Eli was on edge too, his easy smiles replaced by tight-lipped glances over his shoulder. We were running out of time. We started meeting in secret, stealing moments in the hangar's shadows or the cab of his truck. One night, under a blanket of stars, he kissed me. It was desperate, hungry, like he was afraid it'd be the last time. "I don't deserve you," he whispered against my lips. I pulled back, searching his face. "Then why do I feel like I'm the one who's not enough?" He didn't answer, just held me tighter, his heartbeat pounding against mine. The feds closed in. One morning, I woke to a text from Eli, "Don't come to the airport. They're here." My stomach dropped. I ignored the warning, racing to the hangar, where I found him loading crates onto a plane, his movements frantic. "Eli, what the hell are you doing?" I hissed. He didn't stop. "Last flight. One more clinic needs these supplies. Kids. Caleb. I can't let them down." I grabbed his arm. "You'll get caught." He looked at me, eyes blazing. "Then help me." I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the way he said my name, or the way his hands shook as he secured the cargo. I helped him load the plane, my heart hammering as sirens wailed in the distance. We took off just as headlights pierced the dawn, the feds' cars swarming the runway. Eli flew low, skimming the treetops, his face a mask of focus. "You didn't have to do this," he said, voice tight. "Yeah," I muttered, gripping the seat. "I did." The flight was a blur of adrenaline and fear. We landed in a field, greeted by a doctor who didn't ask questions, just took the crates and ran. Eli turned to me, his face softening. "You're crazy. You know that." I laughed. "Shaky," says the guy dodging the feds. For a moment, we were just two guys, caught in something bigger than us. But together. Then the radio crackled. Feds, tracking our signal. We had to move. Back in Willow Creek, we hid the plane in an old barn, covering it with tarps. Eli was quiet, his hands restless. "They'll find me," he said finally. "And when they do, they'll come for you too." I shook my head, stepping closer. "I'm not going anywhere." His eyes met mine, raw and unguarded. "Caleb, I love you." The words hit me like a shockwave, tearing down every wall I'd built. "I love you too," I said, and it was the truest thing I'd ever said. We spent the night in that barn, tangled in each other, whispering promises we weren't sure we could keep. But the world didn't stop for us. The next morning, I got a call from my editor. "Caleb, what the hell's going on? Feds are asking about you." I hung up, my hands shaking. Eli was already packing a bag, his face grim. "You need to go," he said. "Get out of town. Now." I refused, but he grabbed my shoulders, his voice breaking. "I can't lose you two." I didn't leave. Instead, I went to the diner, where the feds cornered me again. This time, they had Photosm and Eli, loading the plane. You're an accessory now, the agent said, smirking. Talk, or you're both done. I kept my mouth shut, but my mind raced. Eli was out there, planning another flight, risking everything. I had to protect him, but I didn't know how. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the Fed slid a photo across the table. Eli and me, caught mid-flight, his hand on the yoke, my face pale but determined. You're in deep, Caleb, the agent said, his voice like gravel. Tell us where he's going next, and we'll cut you a deal. I stared at the photo, my heart pounding. Eli's eyes in that moment, focused and fierce, were burned into me. I pushed the photo back. I don't know anything. The agent leaned closer, his breath sour. You're throwing your life away for a criminal. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. He's not a criminal. He's saving lives. I left the diner, my pulse racing, and drove to the barn where we'd hidden the plane. Eli was there, checking the engine, his face drawn. You shouldn't be here, he said, not looking up. Feds are on my tail. I grabbed his wrist, forcing him to face me. They know about us. The plane, the flights, everything. His eyes widened, but he didn't pull away. Then why are you still here? He asked, voice soft. I swallowed hard. Because I love you, you idiot. And I'm not letting you do this alone. We made a plan, reckless and desperate. One last flight, to deliver supplies to a clinic in Idaho. Then we'd disappear. New names, new lives, somewhere the feds couldn't find us. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. We worked through the night, loading the plane with crates of vaccines, our hands brushing in the dark. Every touch felt like a goodbye, but neither of us said it. You sure about this? Eli asked as we climbed into the cockpit. I nodded, my throat tight. Let's do it. The flight was tense, the sky heavy with clouds. Eli flew like he was born in the air, weaving through turbulence with a calm I envied. You're good at this, I said, trying to keep things light. He glanced at me, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Told you I was more than a mechanic. I laughed, but it died fast. The radio crackled. Feds, closing in. They'd tracked us. Somehow. Eli's hands tightened on the yoke. Hold on, he said, and banked hard, diving toward a canyon. My heart was in my throat as we skimmed the treetops, the plane shuddering. You're gonna kill us, I shouted, half laughing, half terrified. Eli's grin was wild. Not today. He pulled up at the last second, the plane groaning as we cleared the ridge. We landed in a clearing, the clinic's lights barely visible through the rain. Volunteers rushed to unload, their faces grim but grateful. You're late, one said, clapping Eli's shoulder. But you're a damn miracle. We didn't stay long. The feds were too close. Back in the plane, Eli's face was pale, his hands shaking as he started the engine. Caleb, he said, voice low, if we get caught, you run. Promise me. I shook my head, grabbing his hand. We're in this together. He looked at me, eyes shining, and nodded. Together. The flight back was a nightmare. Radar pinged us, and Eli pushed the plane to its limits. dodging signals and praying we'd make it. We didn't. A chopper spotlight caught us just outside Willow Creek, its roar drowning out the engine. Federal agents. A voice blared over the radio. Land now, or we open fire. Eli's jaw clenched, but he started the descent. I'm sorry, he whispered. I squeezed his hand. Don't be. We landed on a back road, the chopper's light blinding. Agents swarmed, guns drawn, shouting orders. Eli raised his hands, but his eyes stayed on me, steady and fierce. I love you, he mouthed as they cuffed him. I wanted to scream, to fight, but I was cuffed too, dragged to a van. As they pulled us apart, I made a vow. This wasn't over. The holding cell was cold, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. I sat on the metal bench, my wrists still raw from the cuffs, replaying the moment they took Eli. His eyes, locked on mine, had been a lifeline in the chaos. Now, I was alone, and the weight of our choices pressed down like a vice. I'd thrown away my career, my future, for a man I'd known for weeks, and I'd do it again. The feds questioned me for hours, their voices sharp, their questions sharper. Who's running the operation? Where's the money going? I gave them nothing, repeating the same line, talk to Eli. They didn't like that. One agent, a wiry guy with a permanent sneer, leaned in close. You're protecting a smuggler, kid. You'll go down with him. I met his gaze, my voice steady. He's not a smuggler. He's saving lives. The agent laughed, but I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Eli was in another cell, somewhere in the same gray building. I didn't see him, but I felt his courage, his fire. I clung to that, even as the hours dragged on. Finally, they let me go. No charges yet, but a warning, stay in town. Monroe. We're watching. I stumbled out into the dawn, the air sharp with pine and regret. I had to find Eli. Had to fix this. I went to the airport, hoping for a lead, but the hangar was locked, the runway silent. The other mechanics avoided my eyes, their silence heavy with fear. I tracked down one of Eli's contacts, a grizzled pilot named Marta, at a bar outside town. They've got him in Portland, she said, nursing a beer. Feds are building a case smuggling. Conspiracy. The works. My heart sank. He's not a criminal, I said, my voice breaking. She looked at me, her eyes soft but tired. Doesn't matter what he is. Matters what they can prove. I spent the next day digging, calling in every favor I had left. A friend at the Gazette got me access to federal records, and what I found gave me hope. The nonprofit tied to Eli's flights had a paper trail donations, grants, proof the money wasn't dirty. It wasn't enough to clear him, but it was a start. I wrote a new story, not for my editor, but for the public. I posted it online, anonymous, detailing the flights, the clinics, the lives saved. I called it The Pilot Who Flew for Hope. It went viral by nightfall. The story shifted things. Activists rallied. Petitions circulated. And the feds started feeling the heat. I visited Eli in Portland, my heart pounding as I sat across from him. A glass wall between us. He looked tired, but his smile was still there. faint but real. "You're an idiot," he said, his voice muffled through the phone. "You're welcome," I shot back, grinning despite the ache in my chest. "I'm getting you out, Eli. I promise." His eyes softened. "I know you will." I worked nonstop, gathering statements from the clinics, the families, the kids Eli had helped. The evidence was overwhelming. His flights weren't about profit, but survival. The feds couldn't ignore the public pressure. They offered a deal: probation, no jail time, if Eli named his contacts. He refused. "I won't betray them," he told me during our next visit, his voice firm. I wanted to be mad, but I loved him more for it. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the nurse from that first flight, the one who'd called Eli a godsend. She testified, bringing medical records and photos of the kids they'd saved. The judge listened, and so did the world. Eli's charges were reduced, then dropped. He walked out of that courthouse a free man, and I was there, pulling him into my arms, not caring who saw. The courthouse steps were slick with rain, but Eli's hand in mine was warm, steady, like an anchor. The crowd cheered as we walked out, their signs reading "Free the Pilot" and "Heroes Fly High." I barely heard them. All I saw was Eli, his hazel eyes catching the gray light, his smile soft but unbroken. We'd won. But the cost was heavy. His secret was out. The flights were grounded, and my career was in ashes. Yet, standing there, I felt whole. We drove back to Willow Creek in silence, the weight of everything settling between us. At the hangar, now just a quiet shell of its former chaos, Eli stopped, staring at the empty runway. "It's over," he said, voice low. I shook my head, stepping closer. "Not us." He turned, his eyes searching mine, and kissed me, slow and deep, like he was memorizing me. "You gave up everything," he whispered. I smiled, my throat tight. "I gained you." The next weeks were a reckoning. The nonprofit restructured, finding legal ways to continue their work. Eli couldn't fly for them anymore, but he trained new pilots, passing on his skill, his fire. I wrote again, not for headlines, but for truth stories about the people Eli had helped, the lives he'd changed. My editor forgave me, eventually, but I didn't go back to the Gazette. I stayed in Willow Creek, building a life with Eli, piece by piece. One night, we sat on the hangar roof, the stars sprawling above us. Eli leaned against me, his head on my shoulder. "You ever regret it?" he asked, his voice soft. "Calling you too cute?" I teased, nudging him. He laughed, the sound warm and free. "No. Choosing me over your story." I looked at him, his face lit by starlight, and felt the truth settle in my bones. Not for a second. We weren't perfect. There were fights about money, about the future, about the risks we'd taken. But every argument ended the same way, with us holding on, refusing to let go. Eli started flying again. Small jobs, legal ones, his hands steady on the yoke. I wrote a book about the flights, about him, and it sold not for fame, but for the kids who still needed help. The proceeds went to the clinics, a quiet promise we kept together. Years later, we stood on that same runway, Older, a little worn, but still us. Eli was teaching a kid to fly, his laugh echoing as the plane taxied. I watched, my heart full, thinking about the fool I'd been, chasing a story and finding a life. Eli caught my eye, waving me over, and I went, because I always would. He was my truth, my home, and I'd never doubt him again. The world moved on, but Willow Creek stayed ours. We built a life there, not loud or flashy, but real. Every flight Eli took, every story I wrote, was a testament to what we'd fought for. Love, trust, and a purpose bigger than ourselves. I called him too cute once, a flippant jab that hid my fear. Now, I called him mine, and that was enough.